The folks at Lydian Studios have been hard at work for this Anomaly expansion, and now that I was finally able to try it, it's comforting to know that I can still enjoy video games, even at the ripe old age of 25. So, if you aren't aware, this expansion is all about horror, inspired by those horror classics without the racism. Now get comfortable and enjoy my first run with Anomaly. There's a lot for you to like around here. There is a new starting scenario that you can pick where you start with 2 colonists and a ghoul, and while it says it's a difficult scenario, it's not really. It's just different because it's custom made to work with Anomaly. And to stick with the cosmic horror theme, Randy Random is the only storyteller I trust to give me the correct experience. I also like how this expansion adds more content to the ideology expansion by giving me this Void Follower ideology, where we are super smart learning about the Void, but struggle when it comes to regular research. To start our colony off, we have Richards, a leading scientist on that expedition. He may be old, but he is very much capable with his skill set. But no expedition led by an old man would be complete without a young woman with dubious qualifications accompanying him. Then there is Will. He was a capable soldier. Now he is our pet ghoul, which makes him incapable of doing anything, but he has super healing. We ended up landing in a mountain pass, and this start gives us a lot of starting resources to work with. This map had a great corner that I could build a very defensible base into. It's a bit of a slow start because we only have 2 colonists to get to work. Will is not capable of doing anything outside of Hulk LARPing. Besides all the starting equipment, we also had this monolith drop down with us, and once Richard started interacting with it, the monolith opened his eyes to visions he could barely understand, and we unlocked the Anomaly content. This gave us access to the new buildings and a new tech tree for us to learn from. Don't worry about the unknown techs. Over time, as we encounter different beings and events, we'll unlock them. One quiet night, a creature called a Sight Stealer appeared out of thin air to jump Will. But despite having the element of surprise, it really sucks at fighting. It was nearly dead by the time Richards came over to help, but we couldn't let it mess with our ghoul and live. The government won't tell you this, but it's completely legal to eat demons or feed them to your pets. They got some really good macros. When it comes to name this place, I have to remember that an egotistical science is running this show, so of course I gotta name the settlement after him. A teenage girl crashes close to the colony and she has paralytic abasia, so I already don't want her, but then I look closer at her bio and see she's quite an interesting character. Not mute, but she has an annoying voice? How do they know? An important thing to know about ghouls is that they can only eat raw meat to survive, so I have him go around attacking smaller animals to eat, since he can heal from his injuries quickly, but then it just dawned on me that Will is gonna be a goated hunter with these powers. Who needs to hunt with a shotgun when Will can just pull up to a goat like... He also excels at dealing with uninvited guests that the scientists don't want to get their hands dirty with. The ghoul healing is truly goated because I thought I screwed up badly when Will lost that leg to a doe, but just letting enough time passed and he regrew that lost limb entirely. Later, a woman named Crawler asked to join us after escaping a cult. The cult clearly did a number on her, giving her an extra tentacle, but also the ability to self-resurrect herself. Sure, she may have not been open about her background, but she's got some skills, so I'll let her in. A choice I kinda regretted because all this woman does is yap about how bad our lifestyle is because of her ideology. She really has strange beliefs, being into animal rights, vegetarianism, but also believes that the strong people must dominate the weak, taking from them and enslaving them. Wait a second, I know somebody like this. A former crew member crashes next to us, unfortunately turned into a ghoul that we can't control, so our only option is to imprison him. He definitely doesn't like being strapped down like this, but he's a very useful source of knowledge for dark research projects. Since Crawler really hated that flesh tentacle that got attached to her shoulder, I decided to do her a favor and cut it off, but I forgot to ask somebody for consent here. The tentacle just jump scared poor Richards by turning into a legally distinct facehugger. Another wild man walked into our territory and I thought, easy meal for Will, but didn't notice that dude was armed, so poor Will got messed up in the fight. But Dan wasn't getting away with that. I had to remind him that we were in the 56th century. Once Will was able to walk again, I had him eat Dan, which is the ghoul's way of emoting on people. I needed more dark research, and to get more dark research, I needed more dark specimens. And to get them, I had to use this ritual spot to provoke the void, calling it mean names, so it sends something after me. It temporarily knocks Richards out, but a monster does come, and Joyce really pops off here with the shotgun, and we soon capture it. We get a new colonist, Cameron, for practically free, since I only have to kill 2 manhunting foxes. Then I provoke the void again, and this time it really isn't messing with me. The flesh beasts were nothing, but the death paw was really gonna be annoying since it will revive any corpse on the map to kill me. So in hindsight, that is actually pretty easy to deal with. You just make a shed to dump the bodies in or bury them. But in the moment, I was just like, "Guh? There's no dangerous bodies around, so I should be good." So you're gonna see what happens when you completely screw up this event. The game wasn't kidding about every corpse being revived. Even if it was just a skeleton, the death paw could just bring it back. And don't you think just because you killed it again, it's gonna stay down. That corpse is gonna keep getting up. In my panic, I decided to put a shed in the worst possible spot I could have because there were a bunch of trees to cut down in it. While I was struggling with killing the corpses again, Randy saw my desperate struggle to save the colony and decided I needed to face another sight stealer. Poor Richard didn't have a chance, and then it chased down Joyce inside the containment area. Once again, Joyce was clutch with her shotgun and took it down for a safe capture. I'm just so glad in hindsight that she didn't kill that thing outside, because if I had to deal with that creature constantly reviving to kill my colonist, my computer may have not survived. Will has it especially bad because he can't eat. He kills an animal and it just respawns with full health for round 2 like it's a fighting game. It's not fair for him, but we can still find one source of food for him. The death paw finally ends and the void threads are pretty manageable for a while. Since the colony is doing pretty well and Randy is taking it easy on me, it's up to me to make things harder for myself when I decided to accept some refugees when we're less than a week from the end of growing season. I mean, they had somewhat good stats and they're eager to help. Even the 8-year-old child starts pitching in by cooking, but have you seen an 8-year-old? I'm not letting them cook my food. Now that I've gotten a sample of what's in store for us from the void, Richards is able to attune with it and upgrade it to level 2, meaning that we get more research from the monolith, but we'll also experience more dangerous enemies. Soon, we heard a disturbance from beneath the surface. A pit gate was opening, and from it, flesh beasts emerged to attack us. They weren't much of a problem to beat, but now I had to check out what was in this pit gate. It's basically like a dungeon. You have to destroy the flesh walls to see more of it, and of course, it's crawling with bugs and flesh beasts, so I'm gonna need to be pretty equipped to clear this out and hopefully get some goodies. Because we haven't tried to raid anybody, Crawler has a mental breakdown wanting to liberate one of the dangerous entities we captured, and as soon as she frees it, she realizes how much she messed up. I had to arrest her after this. She needed to change her belief system if she was to have a future in this colony. But speaking of mental breakdowns screwing over the colony, Davidson was a bit too chilly in his bed, and of course the fat guy had to eat a bunch of food to feel better. I didn't have much food left, and there wasn't that many wild animals out there to hunt, so I just had to kill him. I hate how this guy is being beat to death and he only cares about finishing this last meal. Brain so focused on enjoying the food it forgot to tell him he's dead. Of course, the other refugees didn't take this well, and one of them is a child, but kids are pretty easy to beat up. Cole was sandwiched, so he had no way to escape, and although we had less mouths to feed, we were pretty screwed. Joyce and Will had to work overtime hunting any animals that turned up around here. Later, we had a dark metallic sphere randomly appear in our base, and I definitely didn't want to attack it, so we captured it for study to figure out how it works. Some raiders decided to attack us while we're down, and I just realized this was my first normal raid of this campaign. Since they were attacking, I was pretty scared of being overwhelmed. I even threw down the backpack turrets we started with. These poor Itaken were not ready for everything I set up for them. The beasts couldn't even lay a scratch on me, and you know, since they are covered in fur, have tails, they're practically like animals, so it's completely morally acceptable to eat them. Cameron goes into a baby rage about eating human meat, but I have no idea what he's talking about. So you may think things are pretty bad for me right now, but don't worry, it's actually gonna get a lot worse. The skies are getting really dark, and the game is telling me to build light sources to survive, so obviously I listen. When this weird pillar called a noctilith lands, everything outside of direct light source goes black, so the lights have to stay on at all times, so colonists don't wake up like...
What's it?
So Rimworld has turned into Alan Wake. Darkness has overtaken the map with light being my only safety, but just like Alan, I can write my way to victory. Destroying the Noctilith was the only way to escape the darkness, but the darkness blanketed the path there. Cameron gathered all the wood he could carry, started placing torches in the snow. Once lit, the darkness retreated. A pathway was being created by Cameron, the light shielding Will as he walked towards the Noctilith. He hit it as hard as he could. The whole colony was counting on him. He couldn't talk with them, but he enjoyed their company. Their lives were in his hands. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to be that easy for Will. We finally got to see what the things attacking us in the dark were, and I got Will out of there so fast. It's not as bad when it is in the light because it moves and attacks slower, so I got Joyce out there with her shotgun and blasted it while using Will as bait. We really are just following Alan Wake logic here. Soon we captured it, and at this point I realized I should probably have light sources in my entity cells. The darkness still shrouded us, and we were on a time crunch because we were completely out of food and it was impossible to hunt when we looked like this if we dare spend 5 minutes in the darkness. There were 2 more Noctiliths to destroy and we had to move fast, so we quickly constructed a torch path to the second one for Joyce and Will to start working on. Another Noctil came at us, but the shotgun made short work of it. The last Noctilith was gonna be a problem because I didn't really have the wood to make a light route there, and I needed to move fast, so I did a quick prayer and set Will there by himself since his super healing will protect him. He had to destroy the last Noctilith and beat the Noctil that would come for him, all by himself. I was on the edge of my seat for this fight, cause it literally all relied on Will. Beat his ass, Will. Destroy him! It's all up to you. Save the colony, Will! Oh, he did! Yes! Randy really is the king of raining on your parade. God. But anyway, the darkness was gone, those flesh beasts were dealt with, and we could actually hunt for food now. A trader even comes by and we can buy a day's worth of food from them. The crawler finally sees the light and leaves her weird ideology to become something more normal, so we can finally get her back in as a regular colonist. A very nice ritual you can do in Anomaly is attract a herd of animals, and we got pretty lucky to attract some horses since they have so much meat on them. The times of starvation were past. With spring arriving and being able to grow food again, I dare say we were doing good. Obviously something Randy couldn't let slide. From the underground, a flesh mass heart erupts and threatens to cover the entire map with its flesh walls unless we kill it, but we have to collect 3 samples from its nerve bundles. See, this event just sucks, not in a it's very difficult way, but more it's very tedious, because all I have to do is destroy some fleshy walls, kill this acid mortar that fires once every few hours, and get the sample. Now I have to do this 2 more times, but I have to wait for more nerve centers to respawn. It's so easy that Will can do it almost entirely by himself. The only thing that regular colonists have to do is analyze the sample when it drops. After the 3 samples are collected, I had to clear a path to the heart for a colonist to kill it. But for putting up with this stupid event, you actually get a very goated reward. The flesh mass nucleus, once captured, will constantly spit out dark meat that your ghouls can eat so they'll never starve again. Finally, after 30 days in prison, Crawler has been successfully rehabilitated back into our colony. With 3 arc agonists in the colony, I tried to make Joyce our moral guide, but it still said we only had 2, so I was pretty confused until I got a pop-up that Crawler was just leaving us. I was just staring in complete shock. I never had this happen before. Like, what was her problem? Like, no shot she took issue with us jailing her for her political beliefs. She was into that sort of stuff. I actually had to take a break from recording this video because of that, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Anyways, the Nociosphere was destabilizing and we had to get rid of it soon before it blows up in our face. I just had to find the right opportunity to do it. Finally got the tech for ghoul enhancements so we could make Will a better fighter. I decided on ghoul plating so he's tankier and ghoul barbs so he can hit harder. A blind, middle-aged lady with magical healing powers approached us to ask to join our colony, and despite how suspicious this woman sounded, and the fact she was not telling us about her background, I took her in because how could I say no to someone with magical healing powers? Time was running out on the Nociosphere, so I had to deploy it somewhere, and I was really curious what it could do. I was torn between the small group of zombies that walked in or the herd of muffalo. I decided on the muffalo because I thought I'd be able to get a good chunk of meat out of it, but this thing hit a lot harder than I expected. It ended up burning most of the muffalo body, so unless you're really into ash smoothies, don't use the Nociosphere to hunt. Now that I upgraded Will, I sent him and Joyce against the 4 shamblers, and Will shows that those upgrades are pretty worth it, as he's able to just tank a bunch of damage despite being outnumbered 4-1 and end the fight still standing. Later, we intercepted a distress call. Apparently, a nearby camp was under attack by something, and they were so desperate for aid, they offered everything they had. A reward that generous meant obviously I had to get people there ASAP. Richards, Joyce, and Will arrived to see that the whole place was overrun by flesh with no survivors, so everything truly was up for grabs. Still had to work for it because the flesh feasts were back for round 2, but my ghoul champ Will does his job as a tank really well, even when his own teammates troll him. As we explore, we find that there are still more flesh beasts here. We need to clear them out of every room to leave, so I wait for Joyce and Richards to recover from their injuries. Randy made an observation and had an evil idea. Couldn't help but notice you made your best fighters go to this camp and left the blind woman and pacifists by themselves, so how about I just... Because of the flesh beasts trapped in the building, the trio couldn't leave, so it was up to Tweak to hold the line until they could come. I had the trio try to clear the building so they could leave, but it was too late. The beasts approached our entrance, and Tweak, armed with a knife, had to lock in. But for a blind woman, she didn't do too bad. Yeah, she took some hits, but the demon was definitely worse off. We ended up getting this nice shard and took their weapons from the camp and headed home, which was going through a very calming blood rain. Later, we captured a random refugee who crash landed, and I decided to make use of that shard by turning the refugee into another loyal ghoul, and making Will feel less alone. A guy named Cody asked to join because he's running for something he doesn't want to talk about, and with that not sounding ominous at all, I let him in. So with our increase in numbers, ghoul upgrades, and crafting metal plate armor, I feel that I'm ready to do a proper expedition in the pit gate. There were still way too many bugs here, but I figured if I funneled them somewhere, it'd make it a lot easier to take them out. So I had Joyce bait those bugs by shooting them, and we ran into this room with a very narrow entrance. I felt like a tactical genius doing this. The bugs were barely able to hurt us. After the big group was killed, the bugs would attack us piecemeal, making this a lot easier because they just round the corner and... The main threat of the caves was dealt with, and there was still more exploring and critters to kill, but the people needed a break. We picked up this Harbinger tree seed which grows off of corpses you feed it, so that's pretty neat. We finally learned what Cody was running from. A pack of wolves are after him, and I really want to know what he did to get them that mad. Cause if a wolf remembers you and wants revenge, honestly, you probably deserve it. But Cody is pretty useful, so I might as well try to keep him safe. They weren't even that difficult to deal with anyway. Later on, during an otherwise quiet day, Cody discovered a lump of gray fleshy tissue, meaning somebody among us is an imposter, and we gotta flush him out.
Walter White. Here goes.
You see, I already knew it was Tweak, cause you're telling me this woman who refuses to tell us where she came from isn't hiding something? But is she really an imposter if she isn't even bothering with the making up a cover story part? Still, did a surgical inspection of her and Richards found nothing, but who trusts doctors anyways? I had her arrested to see if she passed the vibe check. Then another piece of gray flesh dropped, and it was pretty obvious Riku dropped it. But how did Cameron see this tissue drop? Through a wall while he was asleep. He's really hitting us with it was revealed to me in a dream. So now I feel compelled to medically check Riku, but Cameron is just on a roll right now. Also realizing that Tweak is definitely an imposter, infected by a metal horror. We have to do an operation to get rid of it, but we're warned to be ready for a fight. The medical check of Riku goes okay, so it could just be Tweak who's sus. The surgery on Tweak happens and I prepare myself. Turns out it was way worse. We had 3 of those things hiding among us, and Riku was actually infected. We just couldn't find it. Fortunately, they are all split up, so we can focus them one at a time. These things are so tanky in combat. I am really glad they were split up, or we would be absolutely cooked. Also, underrated quality of life thing I forgot to mention. The fact that downed colonists will crawl to safety is so nice. It made saving Richards a lot easier. Later, with everyone safe, we just had to kill the last metal horror, and with how tough these things are, I don't get how they were inside a person. So I picked up another Nociosphere a while back, and now it started destabilizing. So when that pop-up was followed up by a psychic ship landing, I knew what I had to do.
"12 seconds later."
This is the dumbest way I've ever lost a colony. The game told me that it'd stay around the area you sent it to, and this thing skipped over halfway across the map. It's just quite a shame it had to end like this, cause I'm curious what the end game is like for Anomaly. So, if you guys enjoyed this video and really want me to continue this campaign, leave a like and let me know in the comments, and I could reload and autosave and get a true ending out for you. You best believe if this video got something crazy like 5,000 likes, I'll be grinding that video out for you ASAP. Special shout out to my alumni on Patreon funding my desire to communicate with the void. I hope I'll see you again soon, there's always more content coming.